Have you ever felt that real pressure to compromise, on your beliefs, to maybe bend just a little bit, even when something inside just tells you, no, stand firm?
Oh, definitely. Or maybe you've wondered, is it actually possible to handle all that external stuff, all those pressures, without cutting yourself off? Or feeling like, you're missing out?
Yeah, it's a big question because the world, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly, it's always kind of pushing us towards fitting in.
Right.
Just going with the flow.
Exactly. So how do you hold on to a deep conviction when, the tide of popular opinion or just circumstances feels so strong?
That's really the core of our deep dive today, the power of an uncompromising life. And we're going to explore this through a really fascinating study of the biblical figure Daniel.
Right. We're drawing insights straight from excerpts of a detailed look at Daniel, specifically chapter 1, verses 8 through 21.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We're here to unpack the proof, the benefits, the sheer power, and maybe the energizing principles behind living that kind of uncompromising life.
Yeah, we'll be pulling out key insights you can apply in, all sorts of situations, and maybe uncovering some surprising facts from the text itself along the way.
Okay, let's dive in then. Daniel's story. It's not just some ancient tale, is it? It feels more like a blueprint for conviction. When you look at his first big stand, what makes it so powerful right from the get-go?
What's really striking is how the source defines this uncompromising life. It's not just about what you don't do, what you avoid. It's equally about what you actively choose to do. It's this balance, a purposeful no to some things, but also a deliberate yes to others.
So like the negative and the positive together.
Exactly. It's what you don't do and what you do. That combination, according to this text, is what really builds character. Daniel didn't just say no to the king's fancy food.
He was probably tied up with idol worship, maybe?
Possibly, yeah. But he was also known for consistent prayer. He embodied both sides of that commitment. He wasn't just avoiding, he was actively practicing his faith.
Right, so it's setting boundaries, yes, but also building something positive within yourself. Okay, that leads us right into the first major theme from the deep dive, the decreed foundation of an uncompromising life. The study really hammers this home, like a life that can't just, float in midair. It needs a really solid base.
Absolutely. And Daniel's decision, the text says he purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. That wasn't about peer pressure or trying to be a hero. It was like deep inside, personal, and internal resolve.
That internal part seems key, and the study calls this foundation the sure foundation.
Yeah, it portrays it as aligning your life with these unchanging principles, described as like a tried stone, a precious cornerstone.
Like building a house on solid rock.
Exactly. The analogy uses building on rock, so when the floods come, the pressures, whatever, the house stands firm. It can't be shaken. It speaks to real stability, knowing where you stand.
And it sounds like making those convictions visible, actually living them out, is part of that foundation too.
Definitely. It's about choosing a path away from, what the source considers wrong, and rooting yourself firmly in your ethical or spiritual framework, whatever that might be for you.
Okay. And then there's the flip side. The source contrasts this with a shaky foundation.
Right. And that's linked to what it calls an uncommitted life. The kind of life that just follows others, doesn't have that deep commitment to its own guiding principles.
Sort of wavers when things get tough.
Precisely. They're described as ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth, which, just leads to instability. You're constantly shifting.
That's a really stark contrast. So thinking about us, listening, how do we spot a shaky foundation? Maybe in our own lives or in the ideas we come across. What are the risks, really, of building on something unstable?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Discerning what actually grounds us versus what leaves us, vulnerable to every new trend or pressure. And then there's a third aspect here, under this foundation idea, the sanctified fortitude of an unconquerable life.
Okay.
Think about Daniel. He's a captive, right? In Babylon, a foreign, powerful land. Yet he stands his ground with this incredible inner strength, this courage.
He goes straight to the top official, doesn't he?
He does. That takes guts. And this fortitude, the study links it to a deep personal commitment, turning away from what it calls youthful lusts, which seems to mean more like self-indulgence, fleeting desires.
Not necessarily just physical stuff.
Right, more broad. And instead, pursuing righteousness, often helped by godly companions, people who share those same deep convictions. Finding your tribe, so to speak.
A captive, but somehow unconquerable.
Yeah, that's powerful. And here's where the source says something really surprising.
It connects this unconquerable life to overcoming deep fears, even the fear of death, through what it frames as unity with Christ, or a deep alignment with a higher purpose.
Interesting.
The text actually says, if that dream, progress, and vision came from the Lord will keep it alive. So it's suggesting it's not just about willpower.
But a conviction that your purpose is somehow protected or sustained if it's genuinely aligned.
Exactly, no matter the threat.
That's profound.
Yeah.
Because fear, especially that deep existential fear, it can cripple us, right? It can stop us pursuing our visions.
Absolutely.
But if you operate from this conviction, this sense that your purpose is bigger than you or divinely backed, well, that could breed some serious resilience.
Yeah.
Real fortitude.
Which leads us perfectly into the second big point, the disciplined focus of unconfined loyalty.
Yeah,
This part really focuses on how tempting it can be to, drift off your path. Especially when you see others maybe taking shortcuts or their wayward lives, as the source puts it, seem to be working out for them.
The temptation of apparent success elsewhere.
Right. So it's about keeping that sharp, disciplined focus on your own convictions.
And that focus is constantly tested, isn't it? Look at the story with the Prince of the Eunuchs again. He was genuinely afraid of the king.
He literally said Daniel's request could endanger my head.
Yeah. And the source calls this others' needless fear that cripples scriptural consecration. It basically argues that the fear of man bringeth a snare. Fear of what people think or what they might do can trap you.
Even people in powerful positions like King Saul, the source mentions him as an example.
Right. So connecting this to the bigger picture, it's about handling those external pressures, standing firm, even when someone else's fear is telling you don't rock the boat.
Which is easy to say, harder to do. Fear is a powerful motivator, even if it's someone else's fear affecting you.
Absolutely. And Daniel's response to that fear, that illustrates what this study calls our nurtured faith that compels only steadfast consistency. He didn't just dig his heels in and say no.
No, he offered a solution.
Exactly. He proposed a practical test. Just give us pulse,
Yeah.
Simple vegetables, grains, and water for 10 days, then compare. See how we look next to the others eating the king's rich food.
Okay, now this next bit, it suggests Daniel's idea wasn't really just about diet, was it?
Not at all. It was a test of conviction, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Pitting his principles against the king's decree and popular practice.
Right.
And the source really emphasizes it's not just about the food we eat, but the word that we take in, the mental, the spiritual nourishment. That's what makes us who we ought to be spiritual. It's about living by your code, not by fear or convenience.
And the result, that was pretty remarkable. This is the observed new freshness that confirms obvious supernatural consent.
Yeah, after 10 days, Daniel and his friends, they appeared fairer and fatter in flesh, healthier, basically, than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat.
Wow.
And the source doesn't just put this down to, a healthy vegetarian diet. It attributes this new freshness, this vitality, to the Spirit of God. It calls it supernatural consent, like an outcome beyond what you'd normally expect, a kind of divine thumbs up.
Okay, so it's presented as real proof. Proof of protection, power for those who keep that disciplined focus.
Exactly, which flows right into the third main section, the divine favor of our uncommon Lord.
Right. The idea here seems to be that if you take an uncompromising stand, one that aligns with and glorifies him, as the source puts it,
then it attracts a kind of unique favor, a divine favor. This is where that commitment starts showing up invisible, sometimes really surprising results.
And the first result highlighted is pretty stunning, the special favor of 10 times better than our peers.
Yeah, the text is specific. After the test, Daniel and his friends were found to have knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel specifically had this extra gift, understanding in all visions and dreams.
And when the king actually interviewed them,
he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers in all his realm.
10 times better. That's not just a little bit better. That suggests a huge difference, doesn't it? Like a whole other level of insight or ability.
It really does. A massive qualitative edge. And it wasn't just compared to their peers right then. It was also the significant favor of 10 times better than our past.
How so?
Well, the source reminds us, these guys came into Babylon as captives. They didn't know the language, the culture. They were starting from scratch, really.
Right, total outsiders.
Yet, they quickly learned and understood so much that they actually surpassed their teachers. It's presented almost like a promise. Commit like this, and you can receive greater wisdom, a new understanding that takes you way beyond where you started.
Wow. Transformation.
Yeah.
And then the final favor mentioned is the spiritual favor of 10 times better than our people.
Here, Daniel himself is really highlighted. He stands out, even among the other Jewish captives in Babylon.
And the source points to later things too, like the fiery furnace, the lion's den.
Yeah, exactly. Chapters 3 and 6. Interpreting the king's dreams when no one else could. It all paints this picture of someone whose consistent commitment led them to stand in prominent and eminent places, exceptional influence, leadership, seemingly flowing from that unwavering conviction.
It's quite a story, isn't it? How that deep conviction, if it's truly rooted and lived out consistently, can lead to these remarkable, almost unexpected outcomes. Outcomes that maybe don't make conventional sense given where they started.
Yeah, it really emphasizes the ripple effect.
We've explored how just one choice, like Daniel's initial decision about the food, seems to echo through his whole life. It impacts well-being, wisdom, influence, everything. It's a powerful story about standing firm.
And building on that sure foundation we talked about, maintaining disciplined focus even when others are afraid or taking different paths.
And the potentially transformative results that can follow.
And that dual nature, right? What you don't do and what you actively do. It's not passive. It's a deliberate, ongoing commitment.
So, thinking about Daniel's story, and maybe those moments where you feel that nudge to compromise, here's something to think about. How might focusing on that kind of disciplined loyalty to your own core convictions, even in the small, everyday choices, how might that impact your own potential for maybe achieving those 10 times better outcomes in your own life?